Oh, I didn't expect it to be that huge. It is bigger than any startup even I have been to, at least in India, maybe the world. I don't. Yeah, a lot of those. In fact, honestly, and when we started Rrazorpay, one of the biggest places because we are in B2B,
Yes.
one of the biggest places I would go out and sell was these events.
Yeah,
So
oh
I'd
my
come
God.
to these events and try to meet people. Hey, do you want a payment gateway? Do you need payments? So fintech is a little more complicated, right? It was not just about finding customers. It was also finding approvals. Yeah, SDFC was the first bank. We met a younger guy relatively at SDFC who understood what we were trying to do, who understood startups, who said, okay, we can give you an approval.
How does it go hand in hand to follow the governance and try to grow as a brand?
I treat regulation the way you treat market. You can't change market, right? Beyond a point, right? So it is what it is. India has been far ahead of the world. Right? The kind of stacks that we have built with around UPI, the kind of stacks we have built around tokenization, and so on. Like the rest of the world is following us. When getting into fintech, trust and safety is the most critical aspect.
Welcome Harshil to Startup Mahakumbh 2024. How was the experience walking into the Bharat Mandapa today? What was the first thought that you carried in when you were walking into this entire great ecosystem that has been created?
Oh, I didn't expect it to be that huge. It was like, I think it is bigger than any startup even I have been to, at least in India, maybe the world, I don't know.
You came here for the first time?
Yeah, and it's huge. I think there's so many budding entrepreneurs, so many students and people who are trying to learn, build. And the energy in this place is infectious, right? Like a lot of people came and spoke to me after the session.
Did it take you back to the days maybe you also were looking out one of the person in the crowd? Have you also been one of the person in the crowd looking for knowledge, looking for speakers and what is happening? Have you had those memories?
Yeah, a lot of those. In fact, honestly, and when we started Rrazorpay, one of the biggest places because we are in B2B, one of the biggest places I would go out and sell was these events.
Yeah,
so
oh my God.
To these events and try to meet people. Hey, do you want a payment gateway? Do you need payments? Can you use us?
How can you remember those days? How difficult was it to go one-on-one to people and make your product? Do we see that product market fit or trying to put your product in the market and testing it?
I think that's the real proof of the pudding, as we call it, right? Like you might have the best strategy, the best ideas, the best thing, but unless when you meet a customer and he gets excited about it, I think nothing else can prove that you're on the right track. So I used to do that at that time. Even today, like I speak to in different form, but I speak to at least one customer a week.
Okay.
The idea of that meeting is to validate whatever we have been planning. Like throughout the week, we are in these strategy meetings, discussions. This is the product plan. This is what the research tells us. But that one meeting a week is the one that actually helps me validate everything.
When you started out, can you take us back to the journey? How did this whole idea come to you? Where did you think it stemmed? And it was always there, coming in the payment company sphere. Did it come suddenly like, I want to also find my place here? Or it was like, no, I want to make a big company. No, this is a space where things are coming up. It's not taken up all. Let me take advantage of the early bird.
I think it was by accident. I don't think it was either of those. So both me and Shashank were techies, right? Like we really didn't have any finance background, banking background or anything per se. So we didn't really think of fintech or finance as a world. We just two techies. We love to build apps and we love to write software in our free time. So for one of those things, we had to accept payments. And we realized it was quite complicated and painful to accept payments. This is 2014, 2015. And we felt like, why is that complicated? And then we went online, we spoke to a bunch of folks that, hey, maybe we are doing something wrong, and we found everyone else struggled with accepting payments as a small business. So there were enough payment companies at that point of time, but everyone was focused on large businesses. Nobody cared about small business.
Okay.
And startups in 2014 was an upcoming category.
It was an upcoming
thing. Yeah, it was like the largest startup was Flipkart, but there are not too many large billion-dollar startups per se. But we felt that, hey, payment seems such a bottom of the layer problem. Like you can't have social media and so many things without internet. You can't have commerce on internet without payments.
Yes.
So payments is a very basic problem.
True.
So whether it is to buy insurance, whether it is to buy goods, whether it is to do any kind of commerce on internet, you need payments as the baseline of it. Right? So that is how the thought process for us came out that, hey, it seems like a big enough opportunity. It seems like nobody's really thinking of it. Maybe we can give it a shot. And maybe it was our ignorance or whatever you may call it, but we felt that this is a space that we can build on.
So when you started building on the product, did you think that we just gonna first test it in the market? As you said, we went out and we asked people, did you go through failures and rejections, or it was just accepted, or you went to the right person? Sometimes it was like go to the right person, right time, and it works for you.
So fintech is a little more complicated, right? It was not just about finding customers, it was also finding approvals, because you can't just start.
The regulatory issues.
So you can't just launch an app and get traction. So we had to so for us, we started building the product side of things. That was actually the easy part. we also started speaking to customers. In fact, customers also we started finding. But the hardest part was getting the approvals for actually enabling payments. So we had to,
you had to go and read the banking rules and everything.
Yes, we had to read the regulations. We had to get certifications from PCI and a couple of folks. We had to go and get approval from a bank, and that was the hardest problem. I personally went and met at least 100-ish bankers, and half of them just rejected us because they looked at us and said, "Hey, you are two 24-year-old techies. What do you know about payments, right?" So, like, because payments, to their point, is a risky endeavor, right? Fintech.
Do you remember the first bank which trusted you?
Yeah, SDFC was the first bank. We met a younger guy relatively at SDFC who understood what we were trying to do, who understood startups, who said, okay, we can give you an approval, you still need to give us a security deposit or something, but I can give you in principle approval. And I remember that day very well because I think it was a Friday when I met him in Mumbai, and next Monday I went and left my job.
So it was like one of the meetings you were doing with the bankers all through, and suddenly that day when
so we were constantly getting rejected. And we went to one banker, he said no. We went to another, he said no. We found some connect to somebody, went, said no.
There was a point where you thought that this product is not right, maybe.
Constantly, me and Shashank sat down and said, should we do in some easier space? Should we do in some other space where we are in control of our destiny?
Ultimately, we're making technologies.
Yeah, so we kept thinking, can we get into some space where we can just build out? But the one thing that kept us going is that while we went through a lot of these hurdles, what we realized is that everyone else who comes after us will also have to go through these hurdles. So it's a space that's not easy to enter. But once you get in, then there's a moat that gets built around it. And so it felt like a right space to keep building. And fortunately, we found the one approval that we needed. And this was said, like, I got that approval. Next day, I left my job. I said, like, now I'm building it full time.
And then the journey began, the journey to build it up. Now, standing at the point where we are seeing, I think with the payment companies, a major hurdle even today is about the regulatory issues. So how, do you look at dealing with it with understanding that the law is also doing its own work? How does it go hand in hand to follow the governance and try to grow as a brand? Because you're also doing business. So you're trying to bring maximum satisfaction and convenience to the customer from your side. So how do you marry both the thing in a very smooth way?
I think, like, over time we have learned that, regulation is very, very much needed in this ecosystem. Fintech ecosystem. Fintech is, you're dealing with people's money. You're dealing with people's trust, essentially, because money can be somebody's life saving.
Yes.
And if the ecosystem is not built with checks and balances, everything will fall flat.
Yes.
One company will come and do something which is not right.
Yes.
And the entire ecosystem will face the brunt of it. Right. So today we are all able to trust the banking ecosystem. We are able to trust the UPI ecosystem. We are able to trust the fintech ecosystem is because of regulation. Because we have somewhere that surety that, hey, we'll be taken care of if something goes wrong.
True.
And I think so. And sometimes when you're building as a startup, you're always looking for that small sliver of the market which needs a problem and which you want to solve. The regulator is looking at the bottom side of it, the other side of it. That how will this be misused?
Okay.
And so sometimes there's this conflict where you might feel, hey, why is this happening? Why is this regulation? But when you look at it long enough, you realize that, okay, they're coming with the right reason.
Does that come as an obstruction in your growth model, in your innovation?
Where the banks want to... I treat regulation the way you treat market. Like, you can't change market, right, beyond a point, right? So it is what it is. If India is a rich country, it is what it is. It's a poor country, it is what it is. You can't really change it. So there's a point cribbing about it. Hey, US is much higher per capita income. India is lower. What can you do about it? You'll have to build with that understanding. Same goes for regulations. There are certain regulations that are needed for the ecosystem. You might not be able to appreciate them, but you have to accept them. And so you have to build with those rules set. So take regulations as the rules of the game. If these are the rules, you have to play in these rules. And everyone has access to. So build whatever you can around those rules. And sometimes regulation can actually be a driver for your innovation.
Yes.
A lot of innovations we've seen in India, whether it is UPI, credit on UPI, tokenization, is actually there are innovations that have been built because of regulation coming in. So you have to see it as a market factor, that these are the market dynamics. How can you build business models around them or take advantage of them in some ways?
The journey of making a startup go to become a big hit or a big giant, then reach the stage where you want to become the unicorn, or you ultimately become a unicorn. That's the term that they use it. How do you look at the journey? Because then you want to get listed. So is this like this is the only way the journey has to end? Is that the only way the destination comes to looking at getting listed to make it a mammoth? A declaration you're big? How does
I think there are multiple journeys. There are businesses who don't need to scale that massively. There are very good businesses in this country. And in fact, like most businesses are run that way, that you start a business, you earn profits out of it, it makes enough money for you and your family, it's good enough. It doesn't need to be 10x and 20x. There's certain businesses that need scale to actually make money.
So you believe all the business don't need scaling?
No. A lot of businesses, there are some great businesses built in this country, and in fact, I in some ways respect them a lot. They didn't need to take so much capital. They were able to Like there are so many stories in my family and people I know who took like very small amount of capital.
They're mostly bootstrapped.
Bootstrapped, they built something amazing, and in the non-tech space, they built either a factory or something, core infrastructure place, and they built a decent business for themselves and their family.
And they could not scale it, or they did not want to scale it?
It doesn't need scaling.
Okay.
Like not every business needs scaling.
Okay.
Now the challenge with some business model, for example, our business model,
Yes.
payments, is a low margin business.
Yes.
So you can only be successful if you scale.
Okay.
At lower scale, the cost will be higher than the revenue.
Yes.
So you will not make money. So it needs a lot of upfront investment to get all of these things aligned, and it needs a scale. So you can't build a payment company that does 10 million GMV because the margin will be so low you can't even meet salaries.
Yes.
But so most payment companies, they are successful only when they do billions of dollars of GMV.
Yes.
And that's why like today we are the largest one. We do about $150 million of GMV, and that makes us enough money that now we are profitable on the payments business. So businesses like ours need that scale, and that's why you need capital early on. You get that capital, you invest that in building infrastructure, and then you hit the scale at which the business starts making money. So I think both directions are available. It's a lot more risky direction actually to go this way. And sometimes we meet entrepreneurs and they say, hey, I want to raise funding. I said, why? You can build a profitable business with much lower risk. Go out and do that. If your business requires to take that risk, go ahead and take it. But you need to be clear on what is needed for your business.
Getting the investors' money is actually taking that burden and taking it's a liability.
So when people celebrate unicorn titles and everything, and we also, I said like, okay, great that people are celebrating it. It's a good recognition. But at the end of the day, it's a liability, right? Like in a balance sheet, it will be reported as a liability. You're taking X $1 million.
In realistic numbers, yes, you are now.
You in some ways, whenever an investor investing X billion in you, he's expecting 10x back.
True.
Right? So it's a liability to return 10x back to him. And if you're not meeting that, your business will not end well.
In this journey of becoming a unicorn, valuation game has a role to play. Do you get burdened by that at any point? Because the valuation of the company grows so high, and then maintaining the business day to day, because a lot of uncertain situations can create turbulence in your business plan.
That's why I said it's a riskier path. Right? So it's a riskier path. There are businesses.
How do you deal at that stage when you have become big? Maybe you want it or don't want to, but you have become big, and you are having your own journey, own struggles with your numbers. So how do you maintain that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're fortunate or by choice that we did is we never raised too much capital. We always raised lesser than what we could raise at that point of time, simply because of this reason, but also because we are in B2B space. Money doesn't really help us grow that fast. So in B2C, more money means more growth because you can do discounts, you can do offers, you can do marketing. In B2B, right, a lot of it is driven by how quickly can we build products. And generally, you can't fast track a bit on a point.
True.
Like if I'm scaling X number of products, I get a lot of money. I can't suddenly hire 1,000 engineers, right? Like it has to go through an organic scale up. So that's the advantage of business, and that is why we're fortunate that even though we are one of the largest players in the fintech space, we have raised a very moderate amount of money simply because we didn't need that much money.
And in fintech, now we see a lot of competition coming in. When I'm talking to startups, most of them choose fintech as the major sector. I think even the government is more fixated over there after Digital India, that fintech is something which has to grow large. So is that also a disadvantage to you, because all the limelight has been thrown on few sectors? So it becomes like, even though you're the largest fintech, you do have the burden to keep up to it every day. You cannot get your eye off the ground.
Yeah, but that's what we are here for. Like that's the journey that we have taken, and we continue to get excited about the journey. I think building burden by it. I think the amazing part about fintech is that fintech is one space where India has been far ahead of the world. Right? The kind of stacks that we have built with around UPI, the kind of stacks we have built around tokenization, and so on. Like the rest of the world is following us on that, and that's why the opportunity is not just about India. Today we are going global, right? Like so, UPI is going global. Companies like ours are going global. We launched in Malaysia last year. We saw
South Asian countries. I think you're more focused around there.
We're seeing amazing traction there. So the opportunity is not limited to India. The opportunity is global, and I think fintech is one place where if we are building world-class products in India, and if we are building world-class products, why to limit themselves to India? So I get excited about it every day that hey, the market is so huge, the market is so large, and we might feel that hey, we are largest or whatever, we just scratch the surface. The opportunity that we have just in India alone is so deep. We've done B2C payments, but if you look at B2B payments, if you look at cross-border payments, if you look at the business to government payments, there's so many challenges that are yet completely unsolved. And I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see a massive number of these challenges getting solved. Either companies like us will grow and take some of those challenges. There'll be newer companies coming in. I think the space is wide open.
What are the three main learnings you've had in your journey? Maybe from your mistakes. If I might not call it a mistake, maybe a learning that this is something where most of the people stumble on, and even you stumbled on, especially in the space of payment banking.
Yeah, I think when very common thing. I think in general that people need to understand is when you're getting into fintech, leading to your earlier question, when you're getting into fintech, trust and safety is the most critical aspect, right? Like, because you can cut corners and move fast and break things in a lot of.
But one businesses. Mistake can take it all.
Yeah. So unlike a software business, you can say, hey, I shipped a poor product, but it's okay, I'm moving fast. In fintech, if you do that and somebody loses money, it's their life savings going down the drain. And you can't just say, hey, I was experimenting and I was trying and it was a beta product or whatever, right? So trust and safety is a critical aspect. And it doesn't just hurt you, it hurts the entire ecosystem.
Okay.
But for the first time, if you do a transaction and you face a fraud, you'll never come and transact again online.
And someone else's mistake can also bring a brand.
That person is lost. Like, he's never going to make a UPI payment again because he lost his money. He loses trust on the ecosystem. So you have not just lost your customer, you have lost the customer for the entire ecosystem.
True.
And that's why it's really important to have trust and safety is a bedrock of whatever you're building. The second thing is more generic to startups. I think a lot of people jump into building, and I've seen when I talk to people that, hey, I like this idea, I get excited about it, I want to build a startup in this space. Like, I think what people fail to realize is that startup is not a 2-month journey or a 1-year journey. It's we are in 9 years of our journey and we are just getting started. It's a 10-year-ish journey or more. So unless you find a problem statement that you feel you'll be excited for the next 10 years, you shouldn't get into it. So a lot of people pick an idea, get into it, start executing, then find something else interesting and get there. That's not going to work. You need to find a thing that excites you and you need to stick with it for like 5-10 years, and that's how long it takes to build out a business, unless it's failing. But you stick with your idea and give it enough time to grow versus jumping from idea to idea. The last thing I'll talk about is I think it's in some ways, and this is something that we are learning as ecosystem now. Unit economics is the bedrock, and as Rrazorpay, we have always been saying that we make money on every transaction, and I don't think a business that loses money on every transaction makes sense. A lot of businesses we've seen in last 5-7 years came out which lost money on every transaction, and today we are seeing a lot of those are struggling to grow. Businesses like ours which always focus on unit economics are in a much better state because you are in control of your own destiny. You make money on a business. If, like to your point earlier, the business goes up or down or wherever it does, you're still in full control of your destiny. You're not dependent constantly on external sources of capital to grow your business or to just run your business. So I think unit economics is fundamentally very important. The purpose of a business at the end of the day is to make money. And if you're not doing that, you're constantly dependent on somebody else to do that for you.
And the last question I have, because we spoke to so many investors, most of our startup companies here depend on the global fundraising up until now. We had a lot of investors and VCs globally investing in India. Do you think a local funding system is much more required, and it is building up, the trust is building up for them to grow? I don't know how your stages of, you got support very early in your growth stage, but they should depend more on the local investor than the global investor?
Honestly, I think from an ecosystem perspective, we should be open to all. Right?
Okay.
So I think it's great that the global investors are funding. I think we should be proud of the fact that global investors are trusting our ecosystem to grow and coming in and giving money. But yeah, you're right. At some point of time, the local investment ecosystem also needs to be strong enough, because sometimes the problems are so, like the complex problems of our ecosystem will not get funded by foreign players because they won't understand like we're building, let's say, lending for farmers.
Yes.
Now, global investor, it's hard for them to understand how complex the problem is, what are the challenges, ups and downs. So it's very hard. It's easy for them to invest in a business model which is similar to what happens in US or West. But if the business model is fundamentally built for India grassroots, then it's hard to get that. So that's why you need local investment ecosystem to fund those ideas. I think it's catching up. Some of the regulations that have come out in the AIF space and everything has been very exciting and has encouraged the ecosystem. The Gift City that we are seeing driven by our Prime Minister, I think that's a strong driver to bring a lot of foreign capital to become kind of like local capital. So we are seeing a lot of the ecosystem come together, but it's a sign of maturity of the ecosystem. As more people come into startups, as more of these startups become successful, we'll see a lot more local investment ecosystem coming in. And I think we are already seeing sense of it. It'll expand further from here.
And let's leaving at a light note, how does your day go by making your own payment company? Do you always end up paying from Rrazorpay? How is the whole feel when you have to use your own product every day? Do you realize I've made it, or you sometimes forget and somebody has to tell you you're the founder? Do you know that?
I think the best part for me is when I come to events like these and I meet a lot of people who come to me and say, hey, we use Rrazorpay, we are building a startup and we're using
And do they know who you are?
Yeah. So they come to me and
they come, consciously come and tell you.
And say, when somebody comes up to me and the first thing that they say is, hey, we use Rrazorpay to build a startup. It's always an amazing thing to hear. And the first question I ask them is, what feedback do you have for me? Right? So,
oh, really?
Yeah, so it's always great to have.
It's always a positive one, I hope.
Yeah.
And also about
which is good.
How does it feel now coming down 9 years, 10 years, the startup journey of entrepreneurs? Earlier was not like that. Limelight fame has also caught up with being an entrepreneur. So how does it feel at home when you with your family, you sit and they're like, you've made it big, but you got more popular than anyone, as you said, in the family doing business, they've done well. So do you there feel like, okay, I got the limelight, made it bigger. So how do you deal with that?
I think at some point of time you realize that it's all great and everything, but it's all a distraction. Right? At the end of the day, the truth of whatever you're building is in how the customers like you, how much your business, how much your stakeholders like you, how much your employees like
so
you.
it is not as easy as the celebrated or celebrity world we see.
You can enjoy it for 5 minutes, but then you're back
That's
to building.
it, just 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes you can enjoy the limelight. You get an award, you enjoy, people congratulate you, then you go back to building, right? So and that's what excites me, honestly. Like, I think we got into this space because it feels amazing to me when I solve a problem that exists in the ecosystem. We go out and solve it, you give it to your customers, they come back and say, hey, you've solved a problem for me. I think that's like that really gives you a high that lasts longer.
If you have to say someone now sitting and listening to your podcast and thinking, I'm going to give you a tough competition soon, what is that thing of caution you will tell him or her?
I think if they're going to give a competition of fintech space, the only caution I'll tell them is that fintech is hard because you don't have one stakeholder or two stakeholders, you have 3 or 4 stakeholders. Okay. There is the customer, there is a partner, which is a bank or somebody.
There's a regulator.
There's at least 3 stakeholders and sometimes government if you're large enough. So you have 3 or 4 stakeholders and you have to meet everyone's requirements.
So don't take it easy. It's difficult to beat Rrazorpay.
You can build out. I'll encourage them to build it out. But there are enough stakeholders. You need to keep every stakeholder in mind when you're building.
Hope we see you get listed soon.
Yeah. We are on track to that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Harshil. It was a pleasure to have you at Mahakumbh and hope you enjoyed the entire ecosystem and platform creation.